Welcome back to Detonation Point presented by Elastio. This week we have reoccurring guest Stephen Dougherty, CEO of Rexfield. And also 9 years ago today, we started the Global Investigative Operations Center for the Secret Service. It's been 9 years, dude.
Yeah.
So welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Always like coming on the podcast here. You and I can just kind of free flow, see what's going on. But yeah, 9 years. Wow.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought about that.
I was thinking about it. I just happened to look at my calendar and said, oh, wow, that was 9 years ago today. 9 years ago, business email compromise ruled what we were working on. Today, it's still a massive problem. So walk the listeners through what you're doing at Rexfield, and then also what are the most prevalent, if we were starting the GIOC today, what are we talking about?
Yeah. So with BEC and Rexfield, it's a fun fight. It really is, because what we can do at Rexfield is a lot of that sort of back-end infrastructure targeting, right? So obviously we want to go after the money, right? Still hunting the money, still successful at getting money back. In the 8 months that I've been running Rexfield, between my own individual stuff and Rexfield, we're between $8 and $10 million in recovered victim funds directly back to victims. Just last week, I thought a case was at a loss with a strange case, strange BEC, but located 150 grand out of 190,000 6 weeks after the fact for the victim. So we're still having success there. But it's also now we're able to really target and look at the back end, right? And we know what to look for. So Ronnie worked a tremendous case that we had come in that was recommended to us by local law enforcement. They just couldn't put the pieces together. We hopped in. We found the money, most of it. That money, we're still working back through the hold harmless process, which, as you know, is a whole other boondoggle. But then we went to work on the cyber forensic side. And what we found was pretty mind-blowing, because the victim had not just one sort of BEC indicator, they had four across four other different companies they were paying invoices for. So we had one that they got hit with and then stopped another three based on what we were finding on the cyber forensics. And then from there, we can build off the network of the infrastructure doing that cyber side attack. So the email addresses being used, other related domains, all of it. And you've seen it just balloons out into a pretty crazy investigations.
Where are the bad guys based out of? Do you know yet?
Most likely West Africa still.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
We're still seeing that nexus.
Yeah. And so walk the listeners through a little bit when you say multiple invoices, and like, what should somebody be looking out for? What did they miss that they should have seen?
Yep. So what we found that really tipped us off were the email rules and the email filters, right? That's their fun little insidious trick where they log into an email account, they go into email filters, and they start setting up filters. And what they did in this specific one, they set up a spoof domain, a lookalike domain, right? And then they filtered any email that came from the legitimate domain. So the actual supplier that they're paying invoices to got blocked, and only the emails from the spoof domain, which was the oldest trick in the book. It was, instead of it being an M in the domain, they had it replaced with the R and the N, right? That really easy typo squat change. And so they had that set up for the main attack. But then again, when we looked, we saw four other different email rules to, again, block from the actual supplier, the actual legitimate client, and only allow emails from the spoof domain. So that way the victim, she wasn't even getting communications that the invoices weren't being paid. So she was paying the invoices, right? No problem. But she was paying it to a fraudster. So then when the actual supplier reached out and said, hey, you haven't paid us for our invoice this month, that email just got blocked and deleted. So she had no idea. So she was going to go and pay more of the invoices down the road. So we were able to find that and prevent that. So that was pretty big. But yeah, it's still such a prevalent thing. And they're still using some of the old tips and tricks that, we were talking about 9-10 years ago that we thought were kind of by the wayside, but nope, still using those typo squatting things, still the email rules. But now our investigative techniques have gotten better and faster, where we can really expand our investigation, exponentially faster than what we had before.
So some of the rules would be auto forward, auto delete.
Yeah.
Is that the primary thing that you look for?
Yes. Yep. Pretty much first thing I have people do, whether they allow us into their system to look or I coach them through their IT to how to look for those email rules. It's really simple. So in Outlook, real easy. Just go in and take a look. And again, their email rules. I'm just doing it right now for my own edification. So you can go in and literally just type in, just make it real easy.
And you're using Outlook, but you can do it with any web-based email provider.
Anywhere.
Okay.
You can type in to Copilot or whatever, ask for rule settings. As soon as you go in, you go to mail and rules. So just hit settings at the gearbox, go to mail, go to rules. And we had one case, one of my first GIOC cases. I went out and did the on-site, and when I looked at the rules, they had 136 bad email rules set up in their email account.
Oh my gosh.
136.
Wow.
So these guys know. So in that case, it was similar to the case I just discussed. It was another invoice sort of supply side BEC, and they had like 140 different clients that they're doing work for, and set up 136 email rules to block all the legitimate domains, so they could take over the communications about the payments for as long as they needed to either get those initial BECs or just keep getting more money. So
that's incredible.
Yeah. So that's what we're seeing a little more of the things at scale now.
Okay. So you talked about business email compromise. I would imagine crypto investment scams, pig butchering. And as you can see behind me, I have a new addition. So I tried to come up with a name. I call him Donnie because he's a giant pig and he's gold. So I'll just leave it at that. So, but pig butchering is still a big problem. Yeah. Obviously, it dwarfs all others at this moment. Have you noticed any changes, or is it still just operating business as usual? We're not making a dent.
You know, I love the work that's being done out there to take down the scam compounds. My fear is that those scam compounds are just going to be moving to other generalized areas. We're seeing in Central Africa, Kenya, West Africa. There's always that void in Eastern Europe where they can kind of set up shop as well. So, you know, the work is amazing, but yeah, it's still there, still a problem. I am seeing kind of some things kind of get a little more sophisticated though. I mean, obviously we know the romance scam hook, they move them to the fake looking websites that show these huge gains. We had an interesting kind of back and forth with a case where they had significant funds on a cryptocurrency trading platform. They switched devices, right? So they went from one computer to like a tablet, and they had to go to the application store to download the cryptocurrency app on their device. Somehow bad actors got a mimic app in the app store, right? And our victim downloaded that, opened it up. It looked legitimate like their normal cryptocurrency app. They were prompted to put in their username, password, seed phrase, all of it. And then nothing really happened, right? And like, this is weird. So they started reaching out to customer service, blah, blah, blah. But in the meantime, they just transmitted all their data over, very similar to other compromised attacks, and our bad actors got in and drained $800,000 out of cryptocurrency from their legitimate cryptocurrency trading app. So it's really interesting kind of take with that Apple Store, Google Store, general app store that we think is very well protected, and it really is very well maintained. They do a very good job at security, but one got through and they were able to hop in and, you know, harvest username and password and get to work.
Where I've seen it be successful, especially on Apple, is if you download the test flight, I think it's the test flight app, which if you have that on your phone, it's basically enables you to download apps that are in beta mode. And so if, say, for example, you have it, and I think I have it on my phone, I'm taking a quick look. Yeah, it's called Test Flight. And so if somebody asks you to download Test Flight, which is a blue app and it's got like, you know, wings on it or whatnot, if you have that, then somebody could say, hey, let me send you a link and go download this. And you could be duped into thinking, oh, this is on the regular app store that has been vetted and stuff like that. And then you can get in, but you might not even knowingly, like, it's just a big red flag is if Test Flight has anything to do with it, know that you're outside the boundaries of what could be protecting you.
Exactly. Yes. And that's kind of where that kind of case is right now is, you know, our victim wants to know who's liable, what can be done to help them. Is it the cryptocurrency trading platform? Is it the application store for whatever provider it was? You know, they're like, we just want to know because we were totally duped, and like, I feel your pain. And there is actually a class action lawsuit out there right now about something very similar. So we'll see how it all plays out.
Aside from your two toddlers, what keeps you up at night? Is there anything that is worrying you that you're starting to see and you think, oh, this could be really bad?
You know, that was me. You know that. It didn't matter. It was keeping me up at night. Now, as I see things from a little different perspective, it's a little bit better for me. But still, I mean, obviously, the social engineering aspect of AI is still one of those things that just gets me every time because it pulls on that trust, and it's such a developed thing that can be used to just get people to give up intimate things, and they think they're interacting with a real person, and it's a tool being used by AI. And so it's more of the sort of mental and emotional impact on the victims that these things are now having, where they're so convinced that what they're doing is real. So having to speak through victims and deal with them that way, and really kind of say, hey, look, and it is pulling out part of the brain, right? It's saying, hey, you developed this relationship with what we believe is a bad actor using AI to enhance the romance scam or the investment scam. And still, it really is a fight against the robots now in terms of that stuff. So yeah, the AI social engineering impact is keeping me up at night.
Have you seen it where the bad actors are at scale using more than LLM AI, but they're using AI for voice cloning and video cloning? Is that scalable now? You hear stories, but like, how widely used is it, or do they need to do that just yet?
So, I mean, obviously we talked about how the old tricks are still working, right?
Yeah.
But it's just another thing in the toolbox if they have to step up their game or be convincing in really more forceful manner. They have that in their toolbox, and every day it gets cheaper, every day it gets easier to access, and every day it gets better quality. I mean, we were kind of doing the fun voice cloning experiments back in 2022, right? Where we were cloning each other's voices and throwing them up there and using for presentations. We're like, look what's coming down the pike. And I don't know if that's fully become a, full pipeline of fraud activity, of cyber fraud activity, but it's just there. It's just another valuable tool in the toolbox. And so that's where I think more is what we're seeing is the tool set has expanded, and that's just one of them. But just more of the mental and emotional impact that can have on a victim is something that still keeps me up at night.
One of the things that I've noticed in all of the presentations that I've seen is the voice can sound exactly like the person. The video can look exactly like the person, no question about it. But if they're using an LLM, there's still a little bit of a delay. So it's, normally if I finish a sentence and there's a 7-second pause or 5-second pause, we humans recognize, well, this is weird. Why did that take so long? In a call center environment, it's not as abnormal, but it is something that's still noticeable because it takes time for that Gen AI to listen to what is being said and then regurgitate something. Humans are still faster than AI as it relates to that. And so that's one of the things that I see. And I'm trying to look, there was a statistic in an excellent book called Brief by Joe McCormick, where he talks about there's a certain number of words that people, and he'll kill me that I'm looking this up because he tells it to me all the time and I keep forgetting it, but it's like the mystical 500 or something like that, where basically it's the number of words that people can hear and then what they can take in versus how quickly they can speak. And it's still faster than what I've seen, at least from the general sort of AI capabilities that are out there today. Have you noticed that at all, like the delay from either presentations or things that you've seen?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Still see the delay. And, again, the funny little kind of foibles of language that generally humans don't do, right? A lot of the LLMs, they love using M dashes, right? I don't know anybody who specifically writes with an M dash in a way that's just like, yeah, I'm throwing together an email and put M dashes in it. So if you're seeing things like that, I mean, obviously that's your kind of cue, and to kind of study up and think about some of those things that kind of, again, is it a little off? And if it is a little off, then it is off, right? Any sort of little red flag, right? They talk about red flags, green flags, or whatever all the kids talk about now. Any little thing like a delay, an odd accent on a word, things like M dashes, complex punctuation that humans don't really do, that's your red flag. Just take a look at it, slow it down. And that's the same thing we've said with BEC. That's the same thing we said with cryptocurrency investment scams, that, the whole thing is if you slow down and look at the bigger picture, you're going to catch a lot of these things. So, back to school time, back to school season.
That's it.
Time to go back to slowing down. You know what I'm saying?
So it was the elusive 600. So people speak about 150 words per minute, yet have the approximate mental capacity to consume about 5 times that number, 750 words per minute. And basically the book talks about the gap in those 750s to 150. So the elusive 600 that could set off triggers and things like that. So it's an interesting concept, but that's going to change as the speed of, GPUs and everything like that goes up. But I still feel like in many instances, it's that human sort of like spidey sense
Yeah.
that a lot of times I think people overlook to a degree. You kind of feel like it's off, but you don't know exactly why. And that's where those red flags should really start to come up in mind, especially if you know what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder too, like, what can we do better for education? Is there anything? There's a guy, I don't know if you remember Tate Jarrow, but he started
Yes.
an interesting company called Jacana that basically has a premise to say, with the speed in which AI is coming at us and the level of the tsunami of fraud, it is not reasonable to expect the average person to be able to defend themselves against what is either nation state affiliated, or commercialized, industrialized scam factories at scale. We are going to have to basically leverage technology at the base level in order to protect all of us. Because I'm sure you, just like I, have clicked on emails that we probably did know we shouldn't have clicked on for a variety of reasons. Some of it is just really good timing on the bad guy's perspective, but also like we need additional help. And if somebody gets robbed, we don't blame the person getting robbed, but yet in scams, we totally blame the people that are getting scammed. So education is not working. I mean, I hate to say it, people doing, wonderful work trying, but it's not working.
Mm-hmm.
Is technology the savior?
I think so. And again, I think it's a combined aspect of everything. Because one, I mean, we've talked about this before. We can't arrest our way out of the problem. We can't educate our way out of the problem. Technology is constantly evolving, right? But if you can't kind of start combining all these different factors sort of into one, then maybe we can make a dent on the victim side, right? Also, I'm thinking, more along the lines of, I don't know if you saw, I did a LinkedIn post the other week. It was sort of my Sunday cynicism. It's like, we have the education. We know what these bad actors are doing. We generally know who they are. We generally know where they are, right? But what are we doing to make it less, or everything's so economically superior in terms of what these crimes make in terms of the money, right? American Bankers Association, they said they got 68 billion reported to them last year, which pales the number compared to IC3 and FTC. And so like really this is, again, as we talked about, a much bigger problem. So what are we doing to make it less economically attractive for bad actors? Right. And so that's sort of where I'm thinking now is, we plug in all those things, the law enforcement approach and government approach, the education approach, technology approach. How do we stop the money and make that, work in a way? And I wish I had a big reveal on here that I have a plan on that. I'm still working through it. But again, a thought I kind of want people to have into this. And so, we got to combine all those factors. And with technology, I mean, that's kind of not my strong point. That's why I have Ronnie. He always has the good answers for that. But yeah, combining all of them and figuring out a way that make that work again, where it's more seamless for our consumers. We're not throwing a huge monkey wrench into the commercial economic process, but we're able to slow down and disrupt and dismantle the infrastructure used by our bad actors.
Yeah. Looking back, again, we said earlier, it's been 9 years since the Global Investigative Operations Center started. You were there day one, along with two other guys. There was three of us, four if you include the agent. But, so what did we do right? What did we do wrong?
What we did right was, I think, picking the right areas to focus upon and scaling on that. I mean, I still communicate back with the Business Email Compromise mission desk, and they're churning. They're doing a ton of work. And that's one of the things we started in the GIOC there. And, it's a way that we can help people. It's demonstrable in terms of the work that it's doing and producing. So that's one of the things we really did right. I think kind of one of the shortcomings was, obviously, and this is a shortcoming everywhere, was the manpower and the ability to hit the ground running at the very first day. I mean, I think you remember, like, I was just sitting out of that little room we had, just like ready to go. I'm like, let's go. And then, as we got in there, we all kind of spun our wheels a little bit, realized what we had to work with, and we became our own pirates. We were stealing monitors. We were, doing what we needed to do to get set up and rocking and rolling. So I think if we had a little more early on buy-in and investment into it with a little bit more manpower and kind of bigger oomph going into it, we could have had a bit of a bigger impact. But we may do what we did, and then we did do that massive scale up. I mean, it's a beautiful area, very conducive to a great working environment. So, I switched me a little more off the bat.
Yeah. So I go back and forth on that, because if there was more infrastructure set up, then we would have less control of where it was going. And part of the fun part, looking back, not at the time, definitely not at the time, was trying to figure out how to get stuff. Because nobody, like we had top cover, but nobody was telling us how to get anything. I didn't know. Remember, I need chairs. Where do I get chairs? Like,
Yeah.
who's the chair guy? They're like, figure it out. Like, we literally had to figure out everything. And so we go
Yep.
from basically 4 of us to now there's probably 50, 60, but we had to build it brick by brick. And if somebody handed it to us, then it would have been more input. And I think we were fiercely independent and not really all that accepting of other external input because we had a vision that we wanted to grow. I actually think one of the things that we did wrong collectively is, and it happened after I left, but it got too big. I always wanted 4 agents, 8 analysts. That's the perfect high performing team. The problem was, and this is kind of like a lesson learned for, I think, for like business to a degree, is more isn't necessarily better because it watered down a lot of the quality and it also watered down the mission. So if you remember in the very beginning, we were very selective of who we would bring on. And we had a process in place to make sure that there was credibility in the field on the people we were bringing on. Then it got so, oh, wow, the GIOC did this. And now it's a place where we can take care of people and bring them in. And control was lost. And that became a problem because you're no longer a high performing team. You're just a team. And the team is no longer everyone's rowing in the same direction. Everybody's looking out for each other. It became not a dumping ground because they were trying to put good people in, but they didn't know who was good. They didn't let the people in there selectively vet who could come in. And I think that that was probably one of the things that, to a degree, things kind of went sideways for a while, even while I was there because of that. What's your take on what happens when you scale too quickly?
I mean, I can attest to that 100% because remember, I did a TDY stint and was kind of venturing out to do some other things in the outreach field and everything like that. So I would leave for periods of time. I would come back and it would look totally different, right? Mm-hmm. And you would have to reintegrate yourself, even for like a 90-day or 3-month absence, to come back and try to really get back into things. Things are constantly changing, right? You had more people coming in. That begat another problem that needed another policy fix, which again needed another policy fix. And it was a big flux. And let's not forget, we grew that during COVID as well, right? Mm-hmm. So we had that whole monkey wrench thrown into it too. And so we lost that kind of cohesion, that early cohesion that we had that made it so like we knew exactly what everyone was working on. We knew where everybody was. It was a thing where it was a cohesive team. And then, it grew out. And then as you had people kind of go out to do something and then try to come back in, just the fabric was different. And, the ability to fit back in and get back to that same mindset was very difficult because it kept changing. Pretty much every few weeks, there was a new change, whether it's policy, whether it's who we report to, all of that. So I think in terms of not only growing too fast, the growth wasn't paced properly in a way that dealt with good and efficient change, if you guess my drift.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example. When we started our Global Investigative Operations Center alerts, our GIOC alerts, I would write them, you would write them. One of us would review it and go, is this good? Can we send this out? And we're like, yeah, launch. Let's go. Speed was the most important thing. And we get it out. I go away for a couple of years and come back. And there's like 5 level of reviewers. And a lot of those level of reviewers have no idea what the hell we were even talking about. I'm like, why is policy looking at my shit? Like, no, they're out. Why is this person? I don't care what they think. Get them out. Like, we got to make it quick. Because I get we're not going to get sued. We never put like victim names in there. But if it's operational intelligence that's important to get out there, why are we becoming a bureaucratic nightmare because of having, whether it's, legal and, like, I don't care what they say. Go launch. And I think there was in the spirit of collaboration that happened, but at the same time, it made it ineffective. And therefore, like, how do you untangle that and say, hey, listen, I know for the last year and a half you've been reviewing these, you're no longer needed. And then now the problem in government is everybody is very sensitive and you have to deal with that. Like, there's no such thing as a professional disagreement. Derek Dunn told me that my first day I met him, because he was an agent out of New Haven. And he's like, you got to understand, everybody's really sensitive. You got to be really careful. And we saw that firsthand. Then all of a sudden you have people that are going up against you and you don't know it. And they're doing the backstabbing thing. And then it just becomes a real sort of nightmare. So growing too fast and then creating all that levels of bureaucracy slows down high-performing teams. Speaking of high-performing teams,
yeah, here we go.
Let's talk about the birds. Detonation Point is the only cybersecurity, cybercrime, and Philadelphia Eagles podcast. But I'm going to start real quick with the Phillies.
Yeah,
I'm not buying into them.
Come on.
They only beat crappy teams. I know they had to walk off with the Schwarber homer, but you can look at their schedule and know when they're going to start losing. And it's always when they start playing the top echelon teams. They beat up, and I had Claude do some statistics on it. They beat up on the bad teams, and they're not particularly competitive against the good teams. So it makes for a fun regular season, but when you get to the postseason, they're not making it past the second round. Do you agree?
I mean, momentum's a hell of a drug in sports, though, so we'll see where that momentum carries in the second or third week of September and seeing how that's going. That's my take on that. I mean, yes, I see the frustration with dealing with the top flight caliber teams, especially when they have those sort of, terrible games where they come out, there's no energy, a couple runs get put up on them early and they just decide to pack it in and put up one run and lose 11-1 or something like that when they have those games, especially against the good teams. But you know me, I'm forever the optimist. I love seeing this and I want them to be competitive no matter what. If they get into the second round and they, run into a buzzsaw, so be it. It is what it is. Enjoy the ride and have fun with it. But then we get to bitch about it. I mean, Alec Boehm has turned us all into the wrong critics because he's been on fire the past 3 weeks. And for the 2 months before that, it's like, we need to get rid of him, release him, just DFA him, do what you do. And now, he's been on fire.
Water always finds its level.
I'll keep my optimism, except for the bullpen. The bullpen drives me nuts.
All right, transitioning over to other high-performing teams who are historically, in the last couple of years, has been higher performing than others. I think my initial looking at their schedule, looking at their roster, 10-7. What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking 11-6.
11-6, yeah. Are you happy with the offseason moves as we're entering a couple weeks away from week one?
I mean, A.J. Brown needed to go. We know that.
Why? Why did he need to go?
Can we just talk about cohesion in a unit?
Yeah, okay, fair. Yeah.
So that I hate that shit. I hate the drama and the stupid BS that surrounds that. I like my team to be a well-oiled machine where you don't have that drama, the locker room, hullabaloo, all of that. So I do like that it was relatively more low-key offseason for the Eagles in terms of not making a huge splash. That's fine. I want to see them actually develop as a unit here. I feel like there's been a lot of stop and goes with their progress, and so I'm curious to see where they go. I'd like a couple of the moves, obviously, the draft pick Lemon. We'll see where he goes with that. I think he's going to be good support for Devontae. I'm worried a little bit about Devontae, though, being the primary receiver and getting all the defensive heat because he's been such a great producer for us, just with the smoke screen that was A.J. Brown at certain points. So I think, I'm optimistic on him. And then I've been seeing highlights on Dontavian Wicks.
Yeah.
Have you seen him?
I have. I've seen
we got him for the 5th and the 6th from the Packers.
Yeah.
And if that's something where Howie turned, nothing into gold, we'll see.
Like Donnie.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see some of those things play out and see how we go. But I'm thinking, 11-6, couple disappointing losses I see that are going to be kind of, the heartbreaking.
Because the offense can't score enough?
Well, I mean, I'm curious to see how they have Hurts too. I think he's going to be under center more. I think the offense is going to be hopefully a little less milquetoast than what it has been in the past, where, it's the same predictable stuff. So I'm hoping kind of things are a little outside the box.
You don't like 4 verticals?
Yeah.
The most important play of the season? You don't like that play call?
Nah.
Wasn't that the last play call of the season? They just ran 4 guys straight? Yeah. What do you think about the NFC East? Who scares you the most?
No, probably the Cowboys. Just because they kind of bring the same sort of thing every year. That's just kind of, they teeter on 1 or 2 games that kind of make or break them. They'll get some momentum, then they'll have make or break game. And if it goes well for them, they continue that momentum. If not, then they just fall the hell apart, which is always hilarious and fun to watch. A lot of smoke coming out of the Giants with Harbaugh. A lot of their defense is the best, and Cam Scatterboo is back, and which I love that guy. He cracks me up, but I don't know if I trust him being a force of a running back for a full season.
Which team do you hate the most in the NFC East?
Man, that's tough. I give the Giants a lot of credit for those 2 Super Bowl wins over the Patriots. That kind of, because the Patriots just needed to be beaten in that sense, and so that gives me a little more. I would say probably the Cowboys.
Really?
homegrown here in DC, but the Commanders just have a hell of a way of getting in their own way every year.
It's the best.
Yeah, it
I
really
love
is. I mean, I think you and
Yeah.
I get more entertainment out of that Schadenfreude than we do out of the actual Eagles sometimes.
Sometimes I do, because I love how my Commanders fans' friends get so optimistic every year, and they fall on their face every year. They step on the same rake every single year, and it is hilarious. And you see it coming, and yet they're so blinded. They win the first 2 games. All of a sudden, they think they're Super Bowl bound, and then they fall flat.
Yep.
And so I'm hoping that continues. I didn't see anything this year that makes me think, oh my God, they're going to be good. Everyone could admit that, I think, if you're a reasonable human being, which a lot of commies fans aren't, is 2 years ago was a fluke. There was a fluke that they got to where they were. It was a fluke that they got to Detroit, who was flat. All of it was a fluke. And then they got smoked and we scored 60 points on them or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, geez.
And they thought, oh, well, now we're Super Bowl bound after that. And predictably, we talked about it. They're not going to do well. And so this year, what do you think if you had to handicap the commies? What do you think?
I'm going to give them 5 wins.
Really?
Yeah. I think they'll pull off a couple, and again, they'll get hot early. Jaden Daniels, to me, I mean, they depend on him. Is Mariota still the backup, I believe? I don't know
he
if
is.
or not, but to me, he reminds me of like one of the Detmers. He's so skinny and fragile almost, where like he really is. And so I think, he's going to get hurt or has the possibility of getting hurt, but I think they'll throw together a few scrappy wins and, hit that 5-6 win mark and kind of go.
And then they'll
there.
Fire their coach, right? I mean,
I don't know. I
5
still think
wins,
he's
he's
really
fired.
well favored. I think he's really well favored still. I mean, think about the train wreck of guys they had before that. I know everybody loved Ron Rivera, but
yeah, I got him for 8 or 9 wins. I think they're
okay.
Although I'd say the division's going to beat itself up more than in years past.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. So, 8-9 wins. Maybe they'll squeak into a wild card. They'll probably lose, and then everybody will get excited and rinse and repeat. Like, it's
Tale
awesome.
as old as time.
Yeah. All right. Early Super Bowl prediction.
Should Seattle repeat?
No.
No, you don't think so?
No. What is that team that's repeated?
Chiefs, wasn't it?
Maybe. They're not the Chiefs.
Yeah.
Did the Chiefs? Yeah, they did. They won 2 in a row, right? Because then the Eagles beat them.
Yep.
Okay.
And I don't buy into the Patriots hype.
God, no.
I just don't. Tell your son I said sorry.
Oh, he's a Buccaneers fan.
That's right. That's right.
It's my wife that won't be happy.
Yeah, definitely tell her I said sorry.
Yeah. A lot of people talking about San Francisco.
Yeah, I was thinking the Niners as well. So.
Yeah.
But they got that power station, that substation next to them. They're going to have all these freak injuries.
Yeah, and what about Denver?
Bo Nix can keep it together. I don't have a trust for a lot of these younger quarterbacks yet. They need to kind of develop that track record for me to really start to buy in. But if he has that one season to get going, we'll see. I mean, he's had a couple seasons, but.
Yeah, and they're also probably playing in, it depends on what happens with the Chargers, but they're playing in somewhat of a mediocre division. Chiefs weren't good last year. They're probably not going to be any better. But you're correct. Obviously, the Chiefs 23, 24. Before that, though, it was 20 years. So it was the Pats in 04 and 05. Yeah. And then before that, it was the Broncos. And those are like legendary teams. Seattle doesn't strike me as a legendary team, but you never know. I just hate their
so
fan
dominant
base.
Towards the end of last year where it's just like, okay, if they can kind of keep that momentum rolling.
Yeah. But the 12s and their fake stadium, that's an amphitheater, the loudest.
I thought that stadium was perfect, though, for the World Cup. I thought that was a great place to start playing those games because they actually designed that field to actually fit a proper international soccer field on it. So, yeah, I was going to say pitch, but I didn't want to sound pretentious, But they actually designed that stadium for a soccer field. And so I thought that was a great place to watch World Cup games. So, each their own.
Tying it back to the GIOC, one of my fondest memories is watching World Cup games, everybody together, and we had the big screens. You remember? And we had somebody from the Netherlands who was on our team, and it was just a lot of fun because it was all summer long. We just got to watch every single game, and I think, remember, we went to Savannah, Georgia, and it was just a really good sort of like bonding experience.
Yeah, no, Charleston. It was Charleston.
Charleston, that's right.
Yeah, that was a fun day. That was a fun day and night.
And then when people ask, why did you spend so much money on a video wall? And my answer was for the Masters and for college basketball for March Madness, then we could add a World Cup.
Yep. And other things. I mean, I used to go and have to work Sundays, right? And go in there and, doing trial prep and things like that. And I would just, we were the only few people who knew how to work the video wall.
Yes.
So we could get everything up there, and I would just get all the football games up there, work on trial prep while I was in there, and it was great. You can't beat that. There was such, again, conducive working environment.
I always thought the test should be, we'll let you work in the GIOC if you learn how to use the Crestron. If you can't figure that out, you should not be in a cyber section.
You're out.
That's it. That
We'll
would
give
be
you
a really good
45 minutes
test.
to study it, and then you got a 15-minute test if you can't figure it out. I mean,
You're
we
out.
had that thing held together with, duct tape and popsicle sticks.
Oh, in the beginning, yes, in the beginning. But then we spent all that money on making it sort of like a state-of-the-art thing. And, now it's a good place for them to bring in, whether it's congressional delegations or foreign partners or whatnot. And that was part of the method to the madness as well. But it was also because we wanted to watch a whole bunch of stuff all at once.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, well, Stephen, I appreciate your time as always and look forward to seeing how this year comes along, and we'll have you in for updates. You still like Tank Bigsby? Are you still a Bigsby guy?
I just like the name, man. That's such a good football name. Tank Bigsby,
Tank
right?
Bigsby, yeah.
And the Eagles have that every year. Kind of there's a player that pops a little bit. It's not in a huge way, but just enough where you're like, oh, that was a good value add, and see where he goes. And that's where I'm thinking Dontavian Wicks is going to have that sort of fill in this year.
It's a good name, too.
So, yeah, right? Man, I need a cool football name.
I'll work on one for the next time you come on. I'll have it. But all right, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, everybody, for listening to this week's episode of Detonation Point presented by Elastio. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.